Harvey Kurtzman is the Peck's bad boy of comics. He is to dangerous satirical humor as Attila the Hun was to good table manners. Since the 1960s, he's been firing smart bombs into our cultural self-image in the pages of Playboy with a strip called Little Annie Fanny, created in collaboration with Will Elder. But back in the dim, dark 50s, he was one of the seminal creators, writers, and artists who brought us Mad magazine. Mad began as nothing more than a comic book, one of those throwaway items that has now become a universally known element of the American literary scene. In the years following Mad, he created and he artistically controlled such magazines as Trump, Help, and Humbug, where he was sharp enough and influential enough to publish the first work of such underground artists as R. Crumb of Fritz the Cat fame, and Terry Gilliam, one of the Monty Python group, is now the director of such amazing films as Brazil, that owe such a large debt to Gilliam's comic book origins, guys like Jay Lynch and Skip Williamson. And because of this influence, Harvey has been called the father of the underground comic. I guess because of the potent influence Mad has had on 3 generations of American youth needful of satirizing the adult world, Kurtzman remains, to this day, one of the outstanding social critics, on a par with H.L. Mencken, Will Rogers, and Thomas Nast, the political cartoonist. He makes us laugh till it hurts, and more urgently, he makes us think till it hurts.
I came upon the Mad format because it was something that I did easily. I'd been doing all my life. I was known as the funny cartoonist in high school, the guy who used to do cartoons for everybody, make everybody laugh with cartoons. I mean, that's the way I got my reason for being in high school. So I suggested that we go to a funny format. I was originally inspired by a couple of college yearbooks that I came across in somebody's garbage pail, I guess. And this was a revelation. The college yearbooks had been doing the kind of satire and parody that I wanted to do for years. Essentially, we did Mad for ourselves, so it became a very personalized effort, and we did very intimate things in our work. I liked Wally Wood's superhero stories that he did for Mad. Of course, Willie Elder, my ever-loving partner, he would come up with these funny little asides that he set the style of putting 1,000 little gags per square inch. And Jack Davis, of course, was with his very slick, smooth technique, and his marvelous brushwork and his humor. Jack was always a very humorous guy. There's so many things that were good. I get a great sense of satisfaction out of what Mad is supposed to have done. Sure, be a fool not to. If I didn't have that, what would I have? Little Annie Fanny. The way Little Annie Fanny started was, this was long after I'd left Mad. I'd been doing a comic strip for my own magazine, a magazine called Help. It was a comic strip called Goodman Beaver. Goodman Beaver was inspired by Voltaire Candide, you know, the boob that goes through life trying to think the best. So I went to Hefner and I said, what if we took my character and turned him around? Actually, it was Willie and myself that did Goodman Beaver. We turned him around and made him a woman with the same personality, the same problems. And Hefner said, bullseye, and that's the way it started. The way humor works to me is you do something to your reader or your audience that fills his balloon. It's as if you store energy and then release it with a bang. That's the basic structure of a joke, of a funny story. You invest your reader with some kind of energy, and then you do something to explode that energy, and that gives your reader a happiness, a good feeling. And that's to me that's what humor is all about.
Jack Kirby is an important name for you to know because Jack Kirby's career spans the entire history of comic books, from the early 30s right up to today. Jack Kirby, when he began, had one of the most energetic styles of any artist. His work practically leaps off the page at you. In the 60s, he went to work for Marvel Comics, where he created the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, the Silver Surfer, and a host of other characters that you all know, in collaboration with a man named Stan Lee. This was the basis of the new Marvel House of Ideas, and it again revolutionized comics. And Marvel Comics became the most popular in the world. In the 70s, he worked for another comic house, DC, and created the Fourth World, Kirby's Fourth World. There were 3 comics, The Forever People, The New Gods, and Mr. Miracle. And in this triumvirate of comics, he created a whole new universe of characters with a lifestyle and with a philosophy that was his alone.
I see that story first. I feel that story first. I know those people first. When I put them down, they've already lived. And I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. My stories are people's stories. And there's elements in my stories that are very, very real. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. And I've done stories in a wide range of subjects. My inspirations were the fact that I had to make sales. And I had to come up with characters that were no longer stereotypes. In other words, I couldn't depend on gangsters. I had to get something new. And of course, for some reason, I went to the Bible. I came up with Galactus. And there I was in front of this tremendous figure who I knew very well because I've always felt him, and I certainly couldn't treat him in the same way that I would any ordinary mortal. And I remember in my first story, I had to back away from him to resolve that story. And of course, the Silver Surfer is the fallen angel. And when Galactus relegated him to Earth, he stayed on Earth. And that was the beginning of his adventures. And they were figures that had never before been used in comics. They were above mythic figures. And of course, they were the first gods. And I began thinking along those lines. And the new gods evolved from those lines. And I began to ask myself, everybody else had their gods, what are ours? What is the shape of our society in the form of myth and legend? Who are our gods? Who are our evil gods? And who are our good ones? And I tried to resolve them in the new gods. And I came up with some very, very interesting characters and very good sales, which satisfied me immensely. Now, I didn't resolve the questions. I'm a guy who lives with a lot of questions. I say, what's out there? And I try to resolve that. And I never can. I don't think anybody can. Who's got the answers? I sure would like to hear the ultimate one. But I haven't yet. And so I live with a lot of questions. And I find that entertaining. I find that entertaining. And if my life were to win tomorrow, it would be fulfilled in that manner. I would say the questions have been terrific. The comic book medium itself is special. It's something that was, that's a result of evolvement. From what I understand, the editorial comic was first. And then they added a few panels to that and you had a comic strip. And they added a few pages to that and you had a comic book. And what we can add to the comic book, we may have to think about that. So I believe that's the interesting part of the entire field, is to say, what is it? Where is it going? How it'll evolve? And we experiment with that every day.